The historic Columbia River Highway is a 75-mile-long road through the Columbia River Gorge in the U.S. state of Oregon. The route travels between the towns of Troutdale on the east side of Portland and the city of the Dalles in Wasco County. The historic Columbia River Highway was built between 1913 and 1922 and is the first planned scenic roadway in the United States. The road has been recognized in numerous ways and has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places since 1983 and was even designated a National Historic Landmark as well as a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. My grandpa and I spent one day in June of 2022 driving the historic highway from beginning to end, and here are a few highlights of our drive on the historic Columbia River Highway. We got off at exit 18 along Interstate 84 to begin our journey on the historic Columbia River Highway. We passed through a few small towns as we made our way up to our first point of interest along the highway, which was the Vista House at Crown Point. The Vista House sits 700 feet above the Columbia River and was designed by Edgar M. Lazarus, who described it as a temple to the natural beauty of the gorge. The Columbia River Highway was dedicated on June 16, 1916, and construction began on the Vista House shortly after. The Vista House opened in 1918 and was dedicated on May 5th of that year. The total cost for construction was just under $100,000 and was more than 6 times the original estimate. The Vista House stands today as a monument not only to Oregon's pioneers, but to the dreamers who insisted on moving forward even in the face of strong and reasonable opposition. The views of the Columbia River Gorge from the Vista House are a sight to behold, and no camera can do justice just how beautiful the views are from up here. Looking to the east, you can see the historic Columbia River Highway on the far right, as well as Interstate 84 as it meanders its way through the Columbia River Gorge. Even though it was an overcast day, the views were still amazing from up here, and the views looking to the west back towards Portland are also amazing. No matter which way you look, you're going to be treated to awesome views up here at the Vista House at Crown Point. If you're at the Crown Point Vista House at nighttime, there's a good chance you might be able to see the northern lights out in the distance if it's clear. Be sure to check the weather forecast as well as the forecast for the northern lights itself to get a good view here at the Crown Point Vista House. As we left behind the Crown Point Vista House, we continued our journey on the Columbia River Highway, and we meandered our way down the cliff and dropped over 700 feet in elevation in just a span of 2 or 3 miles. This is one of the steepest sections of the old Columbia River Highway as you leave behind the Crown Point Vista House. Our next stop along the historic Columbia River Highway was at Latourell Falls. The falls is named after French-Canadian Joseph Latourell, who often played the fiddle in local community dances in the area. He also served as the postmaster of Rooster Rock Post Office in 1887. It is only a 2 to 3 minute walk from the parking lot to the main falls. Latourell Falls is a 249-foot drop over a columnar basalt cliff. There is a 2.1 mile loop trail to see the upper falls that gains about 625 feet in elevation, but we were just here checking out the lower falls near the parking lot. Today, the falls is part of Guy W. Talbot State Park. The park is named after Guy Webster Talbot, who donated 220 acres of his property in 1929 to the state of Oregon to preserve the waterfall and the area surrounding it. Our next waterfall along the historic Columbia River Highway is Bridal Falls. The trail is relatively easygoing and about a half-mile long, and it's all downhill as you make your way down to the falls. This trail is absolutely gorgeous and it's very easy to navigate. Absolutely stunning, beautiful foliage here. Got a nice footbridge here. Looks like we're making our final way down to the falls, just down there. You will have to gain about 120 feet in elevation to make it back to the parking lot, so just keep that in mind as you're making your way down to the falls. Bridal Falls features an upper and lower falls, which add to a total height of 118 feet. Out of all the waterfalls we saw that day, this was definitely the shortest, but that doesn't take away from the absolute beauty of this waterfall. It is absolutely gorgeous here in this part of the Columbia River Gorge. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to go to the next waterfall, which was Oneonta Falls. We couldn't find any parking along the historic highway to stop and hike to the falls, so we continued down the road to our next waterfall, which is Multnomah Falls. Multnomah Falls is the tallest waterfall in Oregon and is the second highest year-round waterfall in the United States. Multnomah Falls is easily the highlight of all Oregon waterfalls and can be easily accessed directly from the old Columbia River Highway, as well as an exit off Interstate 84. Right before you make it to the falls, you pass by the Multnomah Falls Lodge, which was built in 1915 and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1981. The lodge features a gift shop, cafe, and other amenities and is worth a stop if you're visiting Multnomah Falls. Multnomah Falls sees over 2 million visitors a year and is the most visited natural recreation site in the Pacific Northwest. When you visit the falls, be prepared for crowds because this is one of the most popular stops in the Columbia River Gorge. The upper falls plunge 542 feet and the lower falls plunge another 69 feet, adding to a total height of 620 feet, which also includes the drop in elevation between the upper and lower falls. I have been to Multnomah Falls many times throughout the years, and every time I come, I am absolutely blown away by the sheer beauty of this falls. It is truly a magical place here in Oregon and the Columbia River Gorge as a whole. There is a 2.6-mile trail that goes towards the top of the falls and gains 813 feet in elevation. But we decided just to hike to the top of the bridge that overlooks the upper falls and down towards the lower falls. When you visit Multnomah Falls, you just get this aura that just makes you feel happy. It's really hard to explain, but you really have to experience it for yourself. Every time I visit, I am just overwhelmed with happiness whenever I visit Multnomah Falls. Our next stop along the historic Columbia River Highway was at the Oneonta Tunnel, which is located just east of Multnomah Falls. There's my grandpa standing in front of the old tunnel. The Oneonta Tunnel was constructed in 1914 and was bypassed in 1948 and filled with dirt and rubble. The Oregon Department of Transportation began restoring the tunnel in the 2000s, and the tunnel officially reopened in 2009. Although you can no longer drive through it, it is really cool that you can walk through it and see how it would have looked like in its heyday. The tunnel was briefly closed for a few years, beginning in 2017 when the Eagle Creek fire ripped through the area, and then reopened once again in 2021. Our last waterfall here on the historic Columbia River Highway was Horsetail Falls. Of course, you could take the trail here, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to enjoy the falls from right here. There is a mile-long round-trip trail that gains about 300 feet in elevation as it overlooks Upper Horsetail Falls, also commonly known as Ponytail Falls. Horsetail Falls plunges 176 feet over a columnar basalt cliff within the Oneonta Gorge. Our next stop along the Columbia River Highway was at the Bonneville Lock Dam. The Bonneville Lock Dam was originally constructed between 1934 and 1937 and was expanded between 1974 and 1981. It is one of the largest dams along the Columbia River and cost almost $90 million to construct. The Bonneville Dam was designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1987 and also became a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. The dam today produces about 1.2 million gigawatts of electricity. Inside the Visitor Center there at the Bonneville Dam, you can look at the fish hatchery, which also happens to be the largest fish hatchery in Oregon. There at the fish hatchery, you can see Chinook, sockeye, coho, and steelhead salmon swimming upstream along the fish ladders as they make their way up the Columbia River for their annual spawning. I haven't been to many fish hatcheries, but I've heard that this is one of the best fish hatcheries you can visit in the United States. And what's nice is that the Visitor Center and the fish hatchery there are completely free of charge. The Visitor Center there is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's open 362 days a year.
Come through here and they zigzag through it and they rest and then they continue on. Now they get past the dam to go spawn.
Our next stop along the historic Columbia River Highway was the Rowena Crest Viewpoint. Like the Crown Point Vista House, the Rowena Crest Viewpoint offers amazing views of the eastern half of the Columbia River Gorge. Right below the viewpoint, you could see the famed Rowena Loops, which are a very popular spot for photographers along the historic Columbia River Highway and have even been featured in a number of commercials over the years. One thing you may notice at this point from driving on the Columbia River Highway is that the scenery is rapidly changing to a much more arid and desert-like climate. We are in the rain shadow of the Cascade Mountains, and it doesn't take very long for the arid landscapes that dominate eastern Oregon to take over the closer you get to the city of the Dalles. The views of Interstate 84 and the Columbia River Highway from this point are a sight to behold in person. You can see the historic highway paralleling Interstate 84 there on the right out in the distance. This area of the Columbia River Gorge is extremely windy, and it's very popular for windsurfing here, and you can even see quite a number of windsurfers out there on the Columbia River on this particular day that we passed through. The last thing we checked out on our journey on the historic Columbia River Highway was the Dalles Dam, which is located in the city of the Dalles. The Dalles Dam began construction in 1952 and was completed in 1957. Out here you get amazing shots looking back towards Mount Hood, which is the highest mountain in Oregon. The construction of the Dalles Dam was very controversial as it submerged Latourell Falls, which was an important economic and cultural hub for Native Americans who used the falls to capture fish and support their civilization and way of life. The Dalles Dam is one of the 10 largest hydroelectric dams in the United States, and the dam was also designated as a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. Ending our day here at this scenic pullout here on I-84 just before we get back into Greater Portland. Concluding our day here at the Columbia River Gorge. What an awesome day, huh?
Yeah, it's been a great day. It really has been. There's really a lot to see in here, but you need to take at least a couple days to do it from start to finish because there's so much to see and so much to do.
I think we did pretty good for one day.
Yeah, we did pretty awesome.
Well, folks, that's going to conclude my grandpa and I's time on the historic Columbia River Highway. This is one of the most scenic and historic highways in the United States, and it certainly lives up to the hype when you drive it. We had the best time ever exploring this highway, and we hope you enjoyed riding along with us. Do you have any fun experiences driving the historic Columbia River Highway? Be sure to let me know in the comments because I'd love to read about your experiences along this amazing road. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned to the next adventure. We will see you soon.